Hi, everyone. Welcome to How to Be a Deep Learner, an AMA about the deep learning specialization and how to grow your career in AI. It's great to see viewers from all over the world joining us today. Why don't we share a little bit about ourselves? I'll start. My name is Ishita Chaudhary, and I'm a product marketing manager at deeplearning.ai. I live in San Francisco. What about you guys? What do you do? Where are you all from? Hi, Gerald from Holland. Hi, Ananya from India. Nice to have you guys here. Hey, Angel from Mexico. Nice to have you here. Okay, please keep sending these wonderful messages. Oh, Happy Republic Day. Thanks for noticing that, guys. Okay, over a million people have taken the deep learning specialization. Over the last couple of weeks, thank you to everyone who's reached out to us about how DLS has changed their lives. We've dedicated this entire month to celebrate these learner stories and their successes, and I hope that you get a chance to read them and are inspired by them. Today, we have a panel of some fantastic mentors who will answer any questions you might have about the deep learning specialization or about building a career in AI. You can post questions for our speakers in our online Discourse community. I know a lot of you are already on Discourse, but for those of you who are joining us for the first time, let me show you how to quickly participate in today's AMA. On this YouTube page, just scroll down to the description under the video. If you are new to Discourse, click on this invite link to make an account. If you already have an account, click on this link instead, and you will be redirected to the Q&A page for this event. To ask a question, simply click on New Topic and start writing your question here. You can add more details about your question right here. If you would like to upvote any other question, simply click into the topic and click on Vote. If you'd like to see what questions are the most upvoted, sort by votes, and you'll see the questions that have the most votes so far. For example, this one. I hope that was helpful. If you have any more questions, please post it on the YouTube live chat and our moderators will help you out. Now, I know many of you are excited about our keynote speaker today. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our founder, Andrew Ang.
Thank you, Ishita. And hey, everyone, it's nice to see you here. So Deep Learning.ai is celebrating the community of deep learners. One of the thrills I get is whenever I hear from one of you about learning machine learning or deep learning and using those skills to grow your career, get a new job, often build things that I could never have imagined building myself, or maybe even more inspiring, sometimes using your skills to go lift someone else up and maybe help someone else's goals or help someone else's career. As Ishita mentioned, over a million learners have enrolled in the deep learning specialization. You hear from some of the deep learning specialization mentors later today. And so I'm often inspired, excited, grateful to hear about the many individuals that have taken the deep learning specialization and gone on to do really cool things with it. I just want to mention a few of the learner stories that had caught my eye out of a very large number. But on the Deep Learning.ai blog, there's a post about Matt Struble, who talked about moving past an imposter syndrome, feeling like an outsider, to complete some of his courses. And since then, he's now working on machine learning at a leading sports brand. And there's his main job, but cool project he's working on using analytics to decide which picture looks nicest, which is actually important for a lot of e-commerce retail applications, something I worked on in other contexts. So someone can do that, enter deep learning, build a career, and I think that's really cool. Or Kalsoon Abdullah, who had jumped into this field based on initially curiosity about theoretical machine learning concepts, and after learning the foundations, started doing more hands-on deep learning projects, and most recently was working on chest X-ray classification. And again, because of my interest in chest X-rays, that I think it's really cool that today someone can learn online and do really kind of cutting-edge work. I'll mention just one more. Won Jin Kim had a job as a software engineer, and after finishing the deep learning specialization, he was able to dive into research and now is doing research in biomedical imaging, where he's using deep learning to do very cutting edge things. So I myself get a thrill whenever I learn about any of your successes. And if you feel the same, I hope you also check out the deeplearning.ai blog, which has some of these stories. And if you find any of these stories helpful or inspiring, I find many of these stories, in addition to inspiring, have kind of useful career tips about what different people did to get to where they are. I hope you share these stories with others as well. And then before moving on, I also want to extend my gratitude to the entire deep learning community, AI community, the entire community of deep learners for spreading the word, freely sharing your advice with others, collaborating on projects, mentoring others. And there's an idea I've struggled to articulate. I've mentioned this in the batch a few times over the years, but this is an idea that I feel strongly about that, frankly, I've struggled to find the right words for. But I'll just try to say it one more time, which is that I feel that AI is much bigger than each one of us individuals in it. I think the community of deep learners, it is about the individuals and is also about the community of all of us working together. All those little acts of kindness will extend help to someone else. Sometimes that little act of kindness will be acknowledged, sometimes not. But I think it's that our community has those millions of little acts of kindness that collectively causes everyone to then be lifted up. And I hope can, even as we build cool things, support people's careers, I think this community, I hope, can be a core part of how we go about building AI systems as well. And of course, I feel privileged to be one of you, to be part of this really amazing community of deep learners. And I hope that things like the deep learning specialization can also keep on helping more and more people join us in this, I think, wonderful community. I know we have some fantastic course mentors joining us today. And when chatting with different learners in different cities and different places, I found that there are lots of people with questions about the deep learning specialization or about growing a career in AI. So what we wanted to do was organize this event to celebrate the community of deep learners and also to try to get some of these questions answered. I find that that I enjoy teaching online. One of the things I really enjoy doing. I hope it helps others. I think taking online courses gives a good foundational knowledge. And I think, sadly, taking an online course is not the only thing that's needed in order to build a great career in AI. And so once I have this event today to both talk about the online courseware and also to answer some of the questions people have about the other things that you might want to do beyond or after finishing courses to grow your career and do exciting projects. And so I think a little bit later, I'm excited to have several of the wonderful deep learning specialization course mentors that have been a tremendous force helping learners and helping everyone move forward to join us to talk to some of these things. But I am, really happy to have you here with us today and look forward to chatting about various people's career experiences and career tips with all of you. So thank you for being with me here today, and let me hand it back over to Ishita.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Before we let you go, we do have some questions for you from our learners. So I'd love to have a couple of your minutes and go over those questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Our first question is from John Davis. He asks, what skills do people from academia require to switch to working in the AI industry?
Yeah, thanks, John Davis, for the question. I find that when I'm wearing an academic hat, a lot of the systems and processes needed to do academic research has focused on doing modeling work. And I find that academia allows for success in often relatively siloed roles where the only thing you need to do is invent a new neural network architecture or something. You can publish papers and be very successful in academia. I find that in the industry, often we end up worrying about much more than modeling, the full cycle of a machine learning project. How do you actually deploy systems? How do you apply data-centric AI development techniques to get the whole thing to work rather than beat state-of-the-art? And I find that depending on your role in industry, having cross-functional business skills where you can not just, improve benchmark performance, which is great. You can do that, publish paper, but also select the right business use case to build something that's really valuable, selecting the right project and selecting how to build the thing, take it to deployment, work cross-functionally to make sure the rest of the organization, including teams outside engineering, are aligned. Those skills often become critical to succeed in the industry as well. I've seen a few friends, many make the academia to industry transition, and I think both are great, but I hope that people making that transition can efficiently acquire those other skills needed as well to do on the industry.
Thank you. That's great. Moving on. Our next question is from Yaroslav Klimenko. A number of 2022 AI forecasts say that data engineering skills will be more important than data science ones. Is it better to skip DLS and go directly to the machine learning engineering for production MLOps specialization?
Yeah, I would probably not. I think there are multiple career paths to be successful in AI, machine learning, and so on. And I think that it is true that data engineering is really important. And in fact, about a year ago, we had an event at Deep Learning AI where started to talk about some of the work that Land AI also is doing on data-centric AI and systematic engineering the data. I think data-centric AI and more systematic data engineering processes is an emergent set of technologies. Having said that, for you to really know how to engineer the data effectively, I think that understanding the state-of-the-art in deep learning is also important. So it turns out that your ability to kind of pick and tune just a little bit the right neural network, it is really critical. So it's not that the neural network architecture or something is not important. That decision, how you tune the hyperparameters, how you optimize it, how you evaluate it, that needs to be done well. I do think that so long as you do that well, for a lot of applications, most of the effort should be spent engineering the data, hence the rise of data-centric AI. Having said that, it is really important to get the neural network right. And that's why I think, and that's still the goal of the deep learning specialization. So I still recommend, build that foundation in the deep learning specialization, and then maybe after that do ML ops. So that'll be my recommendation for most people wanting to grow do more in machine learning.
Fair enough. Sounds good. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Our third question is from Corey Merchant, who asks, where do you see deep learning being used in manufacturing or the assembly industries today?
Hey, thanks, Corey, for that question. I think I actually know Corey Merchant. Hey, Corey. So I think, I think as you know, Corey, Land AI is doing a lot of work on applying, deep learning to machine vision in manufacturing. I think it's a very early phase. There's an AI industry-wide problem that many others are working on, which is that there's been a recipe for getting machine learning to work in consumer software internet companies, which often have tens or hundreds of millions of users or billions of users, and can build a single monolithic AI system to serve a massive user base and thus create massive amounts of value. In manufacturing, industrial automation, machine vision, there are tens of thousands of factories, and each one of them needs a custom deep learning model because every factory makes something different. So they just need a different neural network, maybe the same neural network architecture, pick a good one, but train on a unique set of data. So the industry-wide problem, I think, that still faces manufacturing is how can we help 10,000, say, factories train 10,000 custom machine learning models rather than help, one company train one monolithic machine learning model. So because of this challenge, I think that we still need better data-centric AI platforms that makes it possible for the customer to do the customization. And while I've been focused on this in manufacturing, to those of you in other industries, I think this design pattern will need to be repeated in many other industries as well. So in healthcare, I don't think it's possible to train one neural network that can read electronic health records for every healthcare system in the world, because different healthcare systems code electronic health records a little bit differently. So the challenge that our whole industry faces is, if there are, I don't know, using a round number, if there are 10,000 healthcare systems and each one of them needs their own neural network trained up, to read their electronic health records and make accurate predictions, how can we get 10,000 models built without, like someone like me trying to grow a team of 10,000 machine learning engineers? So I think the data-centric AI movement and platforms to enable the end customer to engineer the data to build their own things is a key recipe to making this happen. LandAI is doing this in manufacturing, but I think someone else, not me, right, should take this recipe and replicate it to tons of other industries as well. So I think we're in very early phases. I'm excited about the work that hopefully all of us collectively will do to take machine learning to all of these other industries in consumer software internet.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that great question, Corey. Hope you got the answer you were looking for. Moving on, our next question is from Ty. What's the biggest skills gap in the field now and will be in the next few years?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of skills gaps. So with the rise of deep learning, there's increased specialization. So I think just like many decades ago, software engineering, there was one title like software engineer. But then as software engineering matured, there became front end, back end, full stack, mobile, and so on. And I think deep learning is starting to mature and have different subspecialties. And so I can tell you what I think is the single hardest role to hire for in the whole AI world right now is the AI architect. There are many gaps where we don't have enough people that understand deep learning, don't have enough people that understand MLOps, don't have enough people that understand NLP or computer vision or lots of other things. So there are many, many gaps. All of this, ample opportunities, exciting project. But I'll tell you the single role that I personally find hardest to find is the AI architect, which is that person that has a technical judgment, really understands what neural networks can do, how much data is needed, what's a realistic, technically feasible project, but then also can look at a business context and walk into a company, be it a manufacturing company, a healthcare company, a retail company, or something else, and look through or help create the many, many ideas for projects one could do, and actually figure out what is going to be feasible and valuable. So the AI architect role of deciding what to do that is technically feasible and also is valuable for the mission or the business or the for-profit, non-profit, or whatever, that's so really difficult. I do think the foundation of getting there is because machine learning is still evolving. You do need that deep technical foundation in order to make accurate judgments about what is feasible and worth doing. So start from there, and then beyond that, through hopefully pattern matching, gain enough experience to work on different projects, to hone one's intuitions about what other projects worth working on. And I think machine learning is still rapidly evolving, right? There are, every month or two, there are new things, and this is why we keep on updating the deep learning specialization as well to reflect the latest. We updated deep learning specialization last year to make sure that you can learn about the latest, and that's another challenge of this role, because this AI architect person needs to be aware of, kind of close to the state of the art in order to have these judgments. Sorry, that's a long-winded answer, but I find a lot of senior people in corporations, in research, in government, still struggle to decide what to work on. But having said that, beyond that, I think lots of the specific technical skills, there's still huge gaps in terms of how many people actually know how to do it compared to the number of opportunities to do exciting projects. So thank you, Ty, for that question.
All right. Our next question is from Ali Saeed. For data-centric deep learning, what's the best strategy to start the data in any domain, especially the healthcare sector?
Yeah, thanks, Ali. For data-centric AI, the design pattern I often use is, so I think of there as being two types of problems. One is a type of problem where the community has worked on it a bunch of times, like speech recognition, right? I've worked on it, many people have worked on it. So because of that, we already know from the literature or various people's prior work how much data, what type of data is needed. So there you kind of know, oh, I need at least this many tens of thousands of dollars of data. So let's go do that and get started. Having said that, what I see today is that the majority of machine learning applications are or the opportunities, many of them are things that kind of no one has really worked on, and there's no existing literature, there's no track record, no one really knows, what's going to work, how much data is needed, and so on. And for that second category of problems, where I think there are just massive number of opportunities, of projects that no one's working on, I find that is often better to jump in quickly, start with a small data set, train an end-to-end learning, train an end-to-end system, and then use error analysis to drive further development. So for a lot of problems in the health sector, ranging from the various diagnostic problems to using learning algorithms to help with healthcare operations, or read electronic health records, which is something I've worked on. For many of these problems, no one really knows, right? The literature may not kind of exist on how much data, what's the quality data is needed. And for those, the design pattern I often use is start a little bit of data, whatever you can get your hands on quickly, in health, obviously being mindful of privacy and ethical issues, but subject to those things, try to get access to a initial set of data, and then train a model and use that to do error analysis to figure out where the gaps are in performance. And when you know where the gaps are, then to then apply data-centric or model-centric, but often data-centric approaches to target often the slices of data, the slices of the problem or subsets of the data where the performance isn't working that well yet, to then have an efficient path to improving the overall system's performance. Hope that makes sense. But I think that pattern could apply to a lot of industries.
Oh, sorry. Our last question for Andrew is from Ahmed Mahmood. And this is a question that, I think a lot of us have the same question. How is Dr. Andrew so productive?
Thanks, Ahmad. I'm probably less, to be honest, I'm pretty less productive than most people think. Actually, I'll tell you a true story. So, this is random, but this is also annoying. I stayed up until 4 a.m. last night. I couldn't figure out why I couldn't go to sleep. And I was kind of lying in bed last night until 4 a.m. And then I finally figured out this morning, which is that I decided to switch from coffee to tea last November. I thought, oh, too much caffeine. So I actually switched from coffee to tea. This is actually my morning tea right here. And I was out with 2 different friends yesterday, and I happened to drink coffee with both of my friends. So I was really over caffeinated yesterday and stayed up until 4 a.m. And I couldn't figure out why I couldn't go to sleep until this morning. So maybe I tell that story just to reassure you that some days of the week I don't feel terribly productive, and I kind of make dumb mistakes like that. But having said that, I find that there are 2 things I feel lucky to have. One is, I've working with great teammates, deep learning team, right? Each there are many others at deep learning that I feel privileged to work with, and I feel that a lot of what I feel able to do is because I'm fortunate to have many friends that I will totally go to bat for, and that I also trust to have my back. And it's that microcosm of that community that makes all of us better. And then one of the things I spend a lot of time on is cultivating habits. So maybe another personal story. I have many work habits, but as one other example, I'm pretty religious about working out every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And because it's a habit, I kind of don't think about it. I wake up and I go do it, whether I feel like it or not. But that's just one example. So I find that, and I wear a blue shirt every day. This isn't a habit. So there's a lot of stuff, easy things and hard things, that because it's a habit, I don't even need to think about it. And then, and so where I often reflect is, how can I cultivate new habits that allows me to be more productive in the future without really needing to think about it? And I think you can probably guess, right? Lifelong learning, reading a bit, watching a bit videos every day, that I just get up on the weekend, and every Sunday I know, yep, I'm going to spend time learning something. And sometimes, and because it's a habit, it doesn't feel effortful, and just wake up. And of course, I'm going to brush my teeth. And of course, I'm going to, go learn something today. And I find that those habits often lets me get stuff done without, and it doesn't feel that difficult anymore once it's a habit. Um, so hope that was helpful. But I'm probably less productive than most people think. But thank you, Ahmad, for the question.
Thank you so much for that, Andrew. That's a great answer. Curate, like, find the right people to surround yourself with. Have lifelong learning habits, and like stick to your habits. And also, like, I'm really ashamed that I haven't worked out in a month, so I'm gonna probably get to that tomorrow. But thank you so much, Andrew, for joining us today. It was really great to have you kick off the AMA. And yeah, thanks. We'll let you go, and so you can, like, be more productive now while we let our course mentors take over.
No, great. Thanks, Ether. Thanks, everyone. It's good to see all of you here.
All right. Well, that was great. Uh, before I actually introduce our amazing speakers for today, I'd like to take a couple of minutes and overview the deep learning specialization for you all, so that we can get at least like the basic, so you have a basic idea, and then if you have any more questions, feel free to add them to Discourse. So, what is the deep learning specialization? It's a foundational online program on Coursera which has the leading edge machine learning and deep learning concepts. This entire program has 5 courses, which have been divided into really clear, concise modules for self-paced learning. Since its launch, more than 1.1 million learners have enrolled in the specialization, and this has been rated 4.8 out of 5 by more than 130,000 learners all over the world. Now, who is the specialization for? Honestly, anyone who's looking to master AI concepts and to acquire the practical skills they need to build an AI career or deep dive into AI research. But if you're a STEM student or a technical professional or a software engineer, this is great for you. Like, you should absolutely check this out. What do you need before you enroll in the specialization? You do need some intermediate Python experience. You also need some knowledge of linear algebra, nothing too complicated. And it'll be great if you have a basic understanding of, like, common ML concepts. This entire, as I mentioned, this specialization is divided into 5 courses. Um, as you go through each course, you will end up learning about neural networks, about how to improve deep neural networks, how to structure your machine learning projects. You'll learn about convolutional neural networks and sequence models. Now, obviously, there's a lot more under each of these courses. But instead of talking about all of that right now, we urge you to go to the deep learning specialization page on our website or on Coursera and look at the week-wise syllabus. That'll give you a really great idea of what this entire specialization is about. All right, now that we're done with that, I hope you have a slightly better understanding of DLS. And if you're not sure, as I said, don't worry. This is exactly what today's event is about. It's about you. So we encourage you to go to Discourse and ask any questions you might have about the deep learning specialization. And now, without taking any more of your time, let me welcome our speakers for today. All right, let's start off. Hi, Paul.
Hi, everybody. Well, I can just give a quick intro here. Well, you can see the data there. So I'm a software. I spent my whole career in Silicon Valley as a software engineer, working on various things. And when I retired, and I should say my academic background is in math. Back when I'm old enough that when I was an undergraduate, there really wasn't such a thing as a computer science major, if you can believe it. And when I retired, I was curious to just learn some new stuff. So I went on Coursera, and I just happened to get lucky and ran across Andrew Ng's original Stanford machine learning course, and I was just totally hooked. So I've been spending most of my free time taking more courses from Andrew, and then I got interested enough to spend a lot of time on the forums helping people out with questions about the DLS specialization. So that's where I spend most of my time. So It's great to see everybody, and I look forward to hearing some of your questions.
All right, thank you, Paul. We're gonna move on to Kennedy. Hi, Kennedy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me for this session. Kennedy Wangari is my name. I'm a data scientist at Zetova, a developer advocate, technical AI community lead, currently a deep learning.ai ambassador to Kenya, supporting a community of over 200 members, and also a deep learning.ai mentor for the deep learning specialization. I took the deep learning.ai specialization in 2018. And I've been able to walk the journey as a deep learner, and I've been certified as a Google Cloud Professional Architect. My background is in business intelligence, data science, and software engineering. I recently graduated from my bachelor's degree in business information technology. My main motive and my main work is being a stand-up voice and an advocate, promoting data science education for all in Kenya and sub-Saharan Africa. And through that, we've been able to tailor programs, initiatives and activities with NVIDIA AI, with PACT, with DataCamp, and recently with Facebook AI Research, all trying to ensure that we promote the deep learning.ai mission of ensuring that world-class AI education is accessible to everyone. And that's part of what we're doing, and are much actively involved with activities that go towards empowering our deep learning.ai, our developer communities, and great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great. Hi, Aranda.
Hi everyone, my name is Aranda Bregasi. I'm a curriculum engineer here at Deep Learning AI. Thank you so much for the invite. I'm really looking forward to today's session and to hopefully answer some of your questions. My background is in electrical engineering and computer science from UC Berkeley. Go Bears. Again, I work in developing course materials and assessment for machine learning and deep learning specializations. I'm very passionate about advancing the learner's experience in our platform and also breaking down these complex AI research topics and making them accessible for everyone in order to apply and deploy their everyday tasks. I'm also really passionate about representation in AI, and I hope I can empower at least other people to get involved in any sort of interest they have, both in AI and ML. So let us know what questions you have today. Thank you.
All right, and last but not least, we have Mubashir, or as we call him, Mopsy. Hey, Mopsy.
Thanks, Ishta. Hi, everyone. My name is Mohammed Bashir. I'm pursuing my computer science degree of bachelor's. I took the deep learning specialization myself back in 2018. Back then, my only exposure was that people build websites and mobile apps. But when I read the description of the deep learning specialization, I was blown away that I had no idea we could actually make a computer do all of these things. And that really got my interest, and I got hooked to it. And I took the whole specialization. I literally took notes and everything. I was completely loving it. And ever since then, I took all of the deep learning, the specializations, and it helped me make a career in the industry side of things. I worked in the industry for about a year, after which I joined the deep learning itself, and now I work as a learning technologist, where I basically help build the course material and help maintain its integrity after the courses are launched. And yeah, like myself, when I my life changed after taking this course. Now I am devoted to hoping that someone else out there will also feel the same way, and they could also see the potential AI has in this world and making things better. Thank you.
All right. That was great. Thanks for the introductions, guys. Let's dive right into the questions. I'm going to share. I'm going to actually share the event Q&A page so all of us can look at the questions. Now, let me zoom in a little. Can you all read? Can you all read what's on my screen, or should I zoom in further? You're okay? Okay. All right. Let me refresh this page now. So the way we're going to go about this is I'm going to sort everything by the number of upvotes, and we can just start taking questions like as we go. Feel free to jump in and answer whatever question we're talking about. And yeah, let's get this started. We're starting with the big questions. How do I get hired after taking the deep learning specialization? I've completed the specialization before it was updated. Do I need to take the new updated version? And how can I get hired after completion? That's the big question, right? What do you guys think?
I think a few years ago,
I
since this was new, uh, there was not a lot of competition. Like you could take the specialization and you could like uh, apply anywhere. But now I think there's a lot of competition out there. So just taking the specialization itself is not sufficient. You actually need to show that what you have learned. So I would recommend take on projects. They don't necessarily have to be something massive. It's something that you're interested in, your own personal interest, like your own personal side project. So you need to be able to show that what you have learned, you know how to actually apply it.
If I may
I
also
can one thing to add to what Mubsy said is that the question about the update to the deep learning specialization, the critical thing that happened in April was that they switched from using TensorFlow 1.0 to TensorFlow 2.0, which is actually quite a bit different. I mean, if you already know TensorFlow, maybe it doesn't. If you know both 1.0 and 2.0, it doesn't really matter to you that much. And there's also some brand new material that's really great about things like UNet and transfer learning and stuff that wasn't in the original course. So I would say it's worth taking a look at the updated version of the course as well. And then what Mubsy said about you really need to do some projects and you really learn something when you try to actually apply it. I mean, it's one thing to take the course, but trying to apply it to an actual problem. So one good way to get a handle or to find examples of things like that are like the Kaggle website is really great. They have a ton of they just pose these challenges and then people try to solve them. And you can look at some past examples of what people have done. And that's one good way to get practical experience.
If I may also add to that, perhaps something else that could be very interesting for the learner could be also the deep learning specialization is a great first step. So I want to personally congratulate you for finishing. And that could be a very good opportunity for you to also explore some interests that you may have in the field. And that could give some direction into what specifically you'd want to do in your future. And to me, I think there's a special pride in showing off the projects that you worked on, your work that the hours that you've put into the specialization, and perhaps also look into some other specializations such as NLP, ML Ops, depending on what your specific interests are. And I'd say that's a very good transitioning step into what specifically you'd want to do and what positions you'll be applying for. So definitely something to keep in mind.
Thank you. That was a lot of information, but thank you so much, guys. That's great. Let's move on. Oh, this is a good one. What are your time management tricks? How do you decide what to learn next? Kennedy, do you wanna start off with this one? Sorry, Kennedy, I think you're on mute.
Yes. Yes, it's okay now. Great.
Yes.
When it comes to, for me, on time management, when what has worked for me, also when learning the deep learning specialization and also looking at this so much in terms of the amount of the volume and the kind of, there's a lot of content that you get to learn. And for me, what has worked is first, by the time I'm getting to take up any course or enroll or any program, I first set my objectives. What do I want to learn from? What do I expect from this particular course? And also set timelines within each and every week so that I'm able to basically setting a routine of activities in terms of every day I'm able to dedicate a number of hours so that I'm able to tackle the projects, the assignments. And also that discipline to sticking to your routine has really worked well for me. And also always keeping in check with my roadmap in terms of what comes next after I've learned this course or after I've taken up the assignment and the projects. And I can say, yeah, having a strong and routine in terms of being fully objective, in terms of this is what I want to learn, this is what I'll be learning this week, and setting up that schedule and sticking to it but day after day. I think it pushes you to be able to learn and be able to grasp and understand the concepts better.
Great. That's yeah, a lot of what like as you said, like this is something that Andrew mentioned as well. Like have a routine, and if you can try to stick to it, even if you don't do it like 100% of the time, you're gonna like still be successful because you're gonna like try to get yourself out there, get yourself doing the things you need to do to learn what's next. Would anybody else like to add to this?
Perhaps something very, very briefly. I think the time management could also be very, very helpful for structuring your own machine learning projects. And I wanted to tie this back to the specializations because it might come very handy actually in your career to have some sort of conceptual planning, how you approach projects and how you, especially in the industry, and how you deploy them. So I also wanted to definitely emphasize to not get discouraged if you end up spending too much time on something, or if you like fall into that rabbit hole of like actually diving into some other research topics that might not be necessarily directly related to your own project. But I think it's very, very helpful. And those sort of like zoom in, zoom out balance, it's much more balanced actually in how you approach your work. So definitely something to keep in mind for also in the other specializations.
No, absolutely. That's a great tactic. I mean, if I'm bored with like the main TV show I'm watching, I like kind of cheat on that by watching smaller TV shows. I think that's a great zoom in, zoom out technique. Okay, moving on. Okay. Let's take this one. So the deep learning specialization versus the original machine learning course. Is the ML course required to start the deep learning specialization? I really want to hop directly on DLS. Does anyone want to take that? Oh, Paul, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah,
no,
I can take that one. Yeah, no, I started, as I mentioned in my intro, I started by taking the Stanford machine learning course. It's really great. And the thing that's different about it than the DLS course is it's really a survey. It covers many things besides just neural networks. So it's useful to take, but the DLS course is standalone. You can start with that. And it's also, the DLS course is also a bit more modern. It was published in 2017. The original one was from 2011, and there's quite a lot of water under the bridge. I mean, it's still, the material is all still valid and great, but the techniques used and the sort of assumption of the amount of compute power you've got at your disposal and that kind of stuff is more modern in the DLS course. But you can find to start with DLS, and then you might want to go back and look at Stanford ML to get to learn about some other areas.
Yeah. Plus, the deep learning specialization was also updated last year. So like there are some absolutely like brand new cutting edge concepts. So it's absolutely state of the art. Okay. Great. Let's take the next one. Sorry, let me sort by votes again to see if there's any more new questions. Okay. Sorry, let me increase the size of my screen. I feel like some of the questions are getting, oh no, I think we can see the entire thing. Mohammed asks, as an Egyptian, I find it hard to attend offline meetups and grow my connections. How can I fulfill this gap? Should we answer this question before we move on to part 2? So who would like, so I mean, apart from just COVID, I know a lot of us are in places where we might not have as many events, we might not have as many things happening in the local community, but we might find it relevant to find online communities. Do you guys, like Kennedy, I know you're really social, both offline and online, and like others as well. How do you think it's worthy to like completely kind of like replace offline meetups with like trying to build your community online, or like do you think we should still try, like is there a way that people who don't have access to offline communities can maybe start their own, like be the first person who takes a step in their local, like in their region, to kind of kickstart something that they're interested in? What are your thoughts?
Great. That's one of the best ways because that's a few 3 years ago I was in similar shoes, whereby having taken up the deep learning specialization, there was no really active or per se active communities within Nairobi. And being that desire to have a community of like-minded people who are sharing similar interests and being able to learn together forced me to move out the way and build the first data science community for my university, and also walked through that journey and saw the benefits of learning and working together with others in a community. And that also propelled me to also be the first deep learning.ai ambassador to Kenya. So in response to Mohammad's question, I would say take up that initiative, that in your setting, if there's no really active online or physical community, we have the deep learning.ai community. Join the community and be able to establish that community for you people, and you'll get to learn along. You'll be able to build the community, and other people will also greatly benefit from the same. And again, like you did mention, you can also leverage on online discussion forums and communities. We're talking of the Deep Learning.ai Discourse community online. There are LinkedIn groups. There are also forums online that you can also follow, the Kaggle community online forum, to basically being able to be with the team and be able to learn from them, and also be able to share your questions and get the support.
Great. No, that makes total sense. I'd also like to mention that the Deep Learning.ai team does have Pioneer AI ambassadors in Egypt. So if you want to check out upcoming online meetups, do check out the event page on our website. But everything Kennedy says makes absolute sense. Like if there's something that you think is missing, like take the first step and like start it. Like there's a lot of advantages to being the first person, or the first person who is active enough to build a community in your local area. Okay, let's move on to the second part of the question. This person has taken the deep learning specialization, worked on projects, was hired as an ML software engineer. They're planning on migrating to the US one day and get their PhD from Stanford. Well, all the best for that. What can they do to land a job in the US? This might be a little too specific. So if anyone has even if you have a sense of like a broader answer, happy to hear your thoughts.
Well, I can start on that one, and then other people can chime in. I think you're on a great path there. I mean, if you've already got a job in the industry, then that's perfect. Basically, that's what people are looking for. I mean, it's some of the stuff that people asked Andrew about is, how do I make the jump just from taking classes to actually getting a job? And the key thing is to have experience. And one way is to do your own projects on Kaggle. But if you're actually in the industry, then that should, that will catch people's attention. So you just have to start looking at people's websites and try applying for jobs. And in terms of, I was a hiring manager in Silicon Valley for 30 years or so. It's an absolutely common thing. I mean, it's sort of maybe the best understood path for getting to the US is to go to grad school. So you might want to just apply to school first. I mean, that's everybody understands how that works. And it's a way to get feet on the ground here, and then you can kind of get a better sense for how everything works. And so, we frequently in Silicon Valley hire people that, got their bachelor's degrees and, from their local universities, and then went to, MIT, Cornell, Stanford, Berkeley, whatever, to get their advanced degrees. So, and the immigration side of that's all well understood by companies, and they can help you with all the paperwork and that stuff. Just a thought.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes absolute sense. Would anyone like to chime in? If not, we can move on to the next question. Okay, all right. That's the age-old question, right? TensorFlow or PyTorch? I've heard research. I've heard research in ML has transitioned to using the PyTorch library from the TensorFlow library. Is learning TensorFlow today still recommended?
I think let's just start by saying they both are good. They both can be used, but everyone has their own preference. Like you said, like it's an age-old question. You'll see a lot of pros and cons about both things. But over the years, what I've seen is people use them for particular tasks. For example, uh, like if you go towards the advanced side of things, the generative adversarial networks or the NLP, people prefer using PyTorch for those things. And for the computer vision side of things, people prefer TensorFlow. But again, at the end of the day, it's you at your own comfort level, which one your favorite is and which one like you want to upskill in. But I think overall, they both are the same.
Right, they're sort of equivalent, and there are other platforms as well. But I think what people used to say a couple of years ago was TensorFlow dominates in industrial applications. Real companies trying to apply deep learning. But PyTorch is more popular in the academic research community. But I think that's the balance on that's starting to change. PyTorch is kind of catching up, especially before TensorFlow 2.0 came out. PyTorch was just way easier to use. The computation graph model in TensorFlow is pretty hard to understand when you first see it. But I mean, it's kind of like asking what programming language should I learn. The more you know, the better. So if you're going to apply to a job, it'll depend on what the company's using. You'll have to use whatever environment they've chosen. So you're better off if you can say on your resume that I know both. And one good way, I mean, most of the courses here at Deep Learning are based on TensorFlow, but the GAN specialization, they decided to use PyTorch. So that's one easy way. It's a cool way to get introduced to PyTorch, and also the GAN specialization is really cool if you're curious about that.
Absolutely. That's a great answer. The more the merrier. Before we move on to the next question, I do want to mention that Kennedy actually got an internship at this. We're answering the previous question. Sorry. So Kennedy actually managed to bag an internship with NVIDIA. So like, Kennedy, do you want to very quickly talk about that experience and kind of tell our viewers like how you managed to do that while you were not there physically? Like, how did you get that? Oh, okay. Sorry, I think you're on mute.
Sorry for that. Great. Thank you so much for that question. And I would say what probably contributed greatly towards me securing a data science internship with NVIDIA. I interned with NVIDIA from May to August 2020 for the NVIDIA virtual internship program 2020. We could not be able to be in office again, considering there was COVID last year. So everyone in the program, that is the NVIDIA virtual internship program 2020, was all virtually. And for me, I can say, before I talk about briefly on my experience and what next for me after the internship, I could probably touch on what contributed or what do I feel contributed the most towards me securing the data science internship at NVIDIA. And I could confidently say that the proper data science and machine learning experience and the skills gained from taking up real-world projects from Omdena, Fruit Punch AI, and gaining the relevant technical skills from working with communities like Deep Learning.ai, which I'm so actively involved with, and the previous experiences that I've had serving as a data science in internship capacities, they really provided us, per se, an impressive background in skill sets that I would say interested the recruiters. And for those who know me, I'm also I actively do create data science content, and I believe all this holistically drew interest from recruiters. And at that period of time, I received. I got headhunted and had interviews with Microsoft. They applied a ML engineering team and NVIDIA, and I had 3 sets of interviews. And I would say what probably contributed greatly to me receiving the offer was in terms of the unique problem-solving mindset, in terms of how I would approach the various problems in terms of how I would approach the use cases problems that I had for the 3 interview rounds. And much of the skills that I gained from the deep learning.ai specialization, specifically the that course, that is how you structure your machine learning projects and how you logically share and being able to express more about your projects and impact really impressed the recruiters. And one of the recruiters, in a way, was quite impressed that I went beyond just getting to know more about NVIDIA, but also interacting with the various products that I was to interview for. And yeah, just a summary of how my internship was. I really had one of the best times working virtually from Kenya with the Rapids team. And I was privileged to secure a return to offer, joining NVIDIA from March this year as a developer relations advocate, alongside an amazing team that's being launched for Africa. And all this has been due to my active engagements with communities, like the previous question that was asked. How can you be able to bridge that gap? Being able, working with the deep learning.ai and being able to really push yourself to learn the hunger for knowledge and helping others along the way. I think that's what really pushed me to be able to get to have that competitive advantage against the rest. And I would really encourage as many of us that to take up the deep learning.ai specialization. If you've not taken up as one of your New Year's resolutions, I will give you that foundation, and keep learning, keep building, keep sharing in public, and the opportunities will come your way.
Thank you for that. That's really helpful. I think like personal experience, like the best you can do is share your personal experience, and hopefully that'll inspire someone to go down the same pathway or identify their own. Okay, I think we can actually merge our next couple of questions, which are, why do you think people should learn deep learning instead of another type of ML models? And is deep learning the only highly performing machine learning model? So we can, and is it because deep learning is so generic and can be used in multiple areas or something else? So that's the first question.
Like if someone takes this specialization at the very start, like you will see Andrew mentioned why the deep learning is taking off. It's because in this day and age, we have a lot of data available to us, which was not in the previous years. So deep learning itself basically is a technique where you have a lot of data and you just show the data to the computer and like ask it to like make sense of it on its own. So that's basically the ideal deep learning, like with one you'll call like end-to-end. So coming back to the first question, you shouldn't like necessarily just learn deep learning. I think it's always an edge to know more about the other models and like techniques that are available to you, because sometimes you'll come across problems where you won't have a lot of data. So you would have to do some feature engineering, like things like that. So you would see that sometimes not necessarily neural networks, but like trees and other things, graphs, they'll come more in handy. And one important thing also to mention here is sometimes what people try to do is come up with very advanced solutions. But if you see, sometimes the solution is very simple. You don't need to have like a neural network with many hidden layers or with a lot of like big architecture. Sometimes you'll see only like a simple architecture can give you better accuracy, like better results than something advanced that you try to build. So my recommendation is, yes, do learn about deep learning, but also learn what else is out there.
That's great. Can one of you help by giving examples of other highly performing models that might outperform deep learning, or are you, or that's fine if like you don't have the answer right now. Happy to hear what the group has to say.
Well, one thing to say is that there are other kinds of algorithms that there are some kinds of problems that deep learning just isn't applicable to, like clustering, and deep learning is a form of supervised learning, meaning that you have to have labeled data. There's other kinds of cases in which you don't have labeled data, so where you're trying to do things like clustering. Recommender systems. Well, I think recommender systems is maybe a bad example because that used to be done with a different way than neural networks. But I think now people are starting to use neural networks to do recommender systems. But that's one reason to take the Stanford ML course, because there Professor Ng covers a bunch of those things like anomaly detection systems, other forms of unsupervised learning like clustering algorithms, dimensionality reduction, recommender systems. So, I mean, deep learning can solve a lot of problems, but there's sometimes it's just in the nature of the problem that you have, it's not applicable. So it's worth knowing, it's worth taking a survey course to kind of understand. And I personally don't know anything about random forest and that kind of stuff. Maybe somebody else can comment on that.
Yeah, I think another notable thing is reinforcement learning, which is sort of a bit different than, like Paul mentioned, the supervised and unsupervised learning. So like you'll see a lot of people training their algorithms regarding robots using those reinforcement learning techniques. As Paul mentioned, there are places where you can't necessarily use deep learning techniques.
I think I also wanted to add one very brief note on that, and I wanted to circle back to what Andrew was mentioning in the very beginning about the AI architect role, and I believe that has some relation to this as well. And I totally, my opinion actually overlaps with what both Paul and Mupsi were mentioning, but also to reiterate what Andrew was saying, because it truly depends on the perspective of what problem you're trying to solve. I think that's the key thing to keep in mind, and it's very important because in both academia or industry, like you'll have to, in industry for example, you'll have to consider the business case. So what current case scenario you're trying to solve, the use case you're trying to solve, and that will give you some insight into what could be more fit, what method could be fit for you to apply to solve that. And not deep learning is not necessarily the answer to everything. It is to most of the things, but it helps to have some mathematical understanding, in my opinion, to at least understand how a few of these models work, even if it's on a high level. So I think a lot of people are actually afraid of jumping into math. I used to be like that, but I think it's really, it makes things so much easier in the long run if you do take the time to break down the model and sort of understand how it works architecture-wise. So yeah, just to wrap up on that. Hope this was helpful.
It definitely is. Thank you, Rhonda. Sorry you got cut off earlier. This is great, guys. Let's go back and let me sort by votes and see if we have any new questions. Okay, I think we missed this one earlier. How do I find a job as an AI engineer after a career break with previous experience as a software engineer? At most of the places, so Nilima asks, at most of the places, the AI engineer job requirements include previous professional experience as an AI engineer. What should I do along with the courses on deeplearning.ai to stand a chance to be considered for roles that require previous AI engineer experience? Now, I know we've partly answered this question. We've talked about how, yes, go ahead, take all the online courses that provide you with the skills that you need for the job you want to apply for, and then do your projects and showcase those projects during these interviews. What are your thoughts about this? What else can someone do if they don't have previous work experience as an ML engineer?
I think it's like you mentioned. Hello, go ahead, Paul.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I think Mubsy probably discussed this too, and Andrew mentioned it, and I think I mentioned it earlier, is that the one valuable thing to do is to actually show that you can apply the techniques, just show that you can apply what you learn. So one way to do that is to look at some of there's a bunch of websites out there that have tons of curated data that you can use to build models, things like the ImageNet website, and Kaggle is probably the most famous example. They post these contests where they give you a challenge and then see if you can come up with a system that solves that problem. So if you have a project like that, you can put it up in GitHub and point somebody to that, saying, not only have I taken the course and can I say the words, I actually know how to take those concepts and turn it into a real solution to something. would be one way to approach that.
Anyone
I think
else?
one edge that I personally faced when I came into industry was like I did not know how to take the project out of a Jupyter notebook and like run it on a system, or like how to like implement it for customers. So if you can learn that, that's definitely going to give you edge over like even experienced people. Like how do you take uh, AI task and like run it,
Great. Another good way
deploy
would
it,
be,
implement it.
sorry for that. Another great way that I feel would work would be to take up Dr. Andrew Ng's advice on reading and implementing research papers. And being us coming from a software engineering background, it would be easier for you to just take up the advice and look at how can you be able to convert and reproduce and implement some of these research papers in those interesting application areas that you're interested in. And as you learn along, and this way, I believe you'll be able to come up with to be able to convert these research papers into code, and maybe also look at some projects that maybe require you to collect data, and in the long term you'll be able to build some amazing machine learning projects that you can showcase as you build up your expertise in.
Very cool. Those are a lot of good ideas, guys. Absolutely agree with all of them. Okay, let's move ahead. Do you think freelancing is a viable path for a deep learner, especially since many enterprises are looking for outsourcing managed services rather than upskilling their in-house teams? This is a great question. Thanks, Abbas. What do you guys think?
I think it's one of those things where the answer is within the question.
At
Yes, it
least in my
definitely.
region, depends
Yeah,
on where you are.
yeah. So like I know people who just graduated and they're doing AI via freelancing, and they're very happy with what they're doing. It definitely helps them in upskilling as well. And it's like one of those mindset, right? Like why spend time building something when you can outsource it? So it will. The market is there. You can definitely uh, go for it.
Any other thoughts around it?
Truly depends on I think this is a personal choice, and also like it will depend on the region as well, because a lot of the opportunities are limited on the region at most times. So it also, from a career perspective, it really depends how you see your career trajectory down the road. So what specifically you'd want to be working on, and also if that opportunity will allow you to work on the things that you'd want to be working on. It sounds very vague, but for example, if the freelancing allows you to apply these skills that you learn from deep learning specialization and allows you to actually empowers you to use the right tools to solve the right problems, then I don't see the problem why that would not be a viable path to be a deep learner. And there's so many different paths that you can take to be a deep learner. So definitely whichever empowers you the most and fits in your career like perspective, I think.
Oh, that's a great point. If you don't have a lot of companies in your area or that are accessible to you that are hiring or want to upskill their in-house teams, then just like hustle and like try to work for companies who might not have the budget or the bandwidth to hire like 5 machine learning engineers, but might want to have a machine learning engineer lead an important project. So just see what's available to you, and plus as a freelancer you can kind of jump from project to project and pick and choose based on your capabilities or the things that you want to learn, and then use that as relevant work experience to finally apply to a slightly bigger company that's probably not in your region or doesn't necessarily hire from your area, and kind of showcase the work you've done and use that as a kickoff point to like apply to like large AI teams in big companies. So that's great, really great advice, guys. All right, let's go ahead. Oh, we have a slightly different question. What are the challenges associated with building a startup that deals with machine learning? Hi, I'm interested in starting my own machine learning startup, and I was wondering what kind of challenges we might have. Common problems, what branches of AI are most lucrative? Um, does anyone want to take that? And it's fine if we don't have the right answer right now. We can always get back to we have like apart from our like amazing panel today, we do have like other course mentors who might have actually gone through this experience of doing their own startup, so we can get back with some amazing answers. But I just want to see if the group has any thoughts about this.
Well, I mean, it's a great question. Unfortunately, I don't think there's any simple answers. I've never been in an AI startup. I have been in some very young startup companies over my career, and it's starting anything from scratch. You gotta have the right idea. You got to be there at the right time, and then the team that you hire. That's absolutely critical. I mean, Andrew made a bunch of references to that sort of thing. Building a team of people that have the right skills and that you like them and you can work with them is a really huge thing. And I've been in companies where we had a great idea and we actually executed the idea, but by the time we got done with it, there was a competitive product that was already better than what we were doing. So sometimes it's just the luck of picking the right thing. And in terms of what you build, I mean that's that's the challenge, right? If we all knew those answers, we'd be gazillionaires, right? So in other words, you have to pick a problem that nobody solved, that is solvable, and that will have big value if it gets solved, and that 100 other people didn't already just have the same idea yesterday. So that's a hard set of challenges.
Yeah,
But I
you're
mean, but the
always
good
running
news.
against that. Sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
well, but the good news is it's a huge space out there. So you have an infinite number of things you could choose to do. So it's not like there aren't enough choices, but finding one that's going to pay off in a big way that's the challenge. It's not, and there's no easy answer, unfortunately.
Yep, absolutely. And as Paul mentioned, like AI has been around for a while, but there's still so much to do. It's absolutely not saturated. So if you have an idea and if you have the chops for it, and if you have a team that you trust to actually execute an idea, just go for it. I'd also like to mention that one of our sister companies, AIFund.ai, is a startup studio. So check that out. They do have a lot of AI startups under them. So that could be like a great, like, check out what those startups are doing. Check out what AIFund.ai is doing. Might give you like a good kickoff point for your own. All right, let's go back and see what other questions we have. Okay. What is usually the most challenging task as a new data scientist entering a new company?
Like I mentioned, in my experience, it was taking the whole idea out of the Jupyter notebook and deploying it. So that was something I really had to learn, and I had absolutely no idea how to do it. So it really took me a while to learn that.
How long
And
did it take you, Mopsy?
it took me like a
Don't
week or
lie.
something to actually, yeah. So no, so to understand how to do that took some time. To actually do it took even longer.
Okay.
So yeah, so I would definitely recommend you should know how to be able to deploy your AI models.
Great. I would like to hear what others have to say. Like, yeah, like you're a new data scientist. You've just been hired as like at your like first data scientist job at a new company. Like, what else? What else should people look out for? What else should they keep in mind when they start a new role?
I totally agree with Mopsy's point on that. It's important to keep in mind. I think that's what the user was referring to with the challenging task. I think it's mainly like keeping in mind that you're building like something that will be shipped, like something with a use case impact, and something that will go into the hands of most likely like real humans. And it's sometimes good to keep that in mind as a developer, not only as a data scientist, but also as an engineer in general. Like when you approach this sort of project, to also keep in mind like the after like especially the later stages for deployment and the impact after deployment, and also keeping in mind this like the fail-safe cases. And it truly depends on the sort of tasks that you're solving with your team. And the second thing I think that's should deserve more attention, I think, is also like the teamwork. I think you can definitely like have a much smoother experience if you share your concerns, or you share your like specific challenges that you find that can be solved with your other team members within your own team. And most likely like you can understand and get a better insight how other people are approaching certain problems, and that will give you some experience as a junior software engineer or junior data scientist in the industry. But definitely don't let the deployment discourage you. It's intimidating in the beginning, but you'll get a hang of it.
Great to just add on and probably just share my reflections and what I learned when I got hired first as a data scientist in 2020. And I would just to emphasize on what has just been talked about. Basically improving your software engineering best practices, because we're all talking of moving your notebooks to to production, and figuring out how you how you moving from experimentation, data exploration, and working on reproducible code and deploying your projects. Another key lesson that I think for me, and also a reflection that I learned the hard way, was ask more questions when you join in as a data scientist before any actual coding. Because for me, I'd say I've burned a few times working on a project, but then later you realize that you didn't have much clarity or the consensus with the stakeholders regarding the problem and the solution and the direction it's taking. So another key lesson that I've also learned, and I believe would be great, is ask more questions before you do the actual coding or before working on any project as a new data scientist. And also getting to work alongside with the domain experts, because you're making a lot of assumptions with the data. You trying to prototype, you working with engineers. So basically get to engage them, get to know why certain product decisions are made. If maybe you're working maybe in a specific domain, like in my case, that is supply chain. Talk to a subject matter expert who will be able to guide you and be able to work with you as you build your solution. And also another thing that another lesson is basically prototype to get the buying in from the stakeholders. Start simple, build a solution, get the feedback, implement the feedback, repeat the cycle all the way until project execution is complete. And those are key lessons that I've learned along the way. Basically improving on your software engineering best practices. Get to know how do you move your notebook, your experimental work to production, working with the domain experts, and getting that build simple, get the feedback, iterate, and again, ask more questions, get that clarity, the consensus, and build along. It's quite an interesting and exciting journey.
Wow, Kennedy, that was such a great answer. Like so many good ideas, and like you just like packed like a punch. Like, thank you so much for that. Absolutely, like work with the stakeholders. Like you might have a certain expectation when you start a new role, but you don't know what like your team wants, or like what your manager is looking for. So like always make sure that all the stakeholders are on the same page before you actually start building something or start putting in effort to build something. So, wow, that's a great answer. Thank you so much, guys. Let's check what other questions we have so far. Okay. Non-computer science background to ML engineering. Between the gap between the deep learning specialization and to hireable skills, how would you go about bridging these gaps, and what kind of things should you be doing or would recommend? So this is someone who Avash, he is not from a computer science background, and he wants to become a machine learning engineer. So and it seems like they want to take the deep learning courses. So what else? I think we've already kind of answered these questions into like what they need to do to get hired. Um, Anything else that they would need in terms of bridging their like their skill gap to get to that, like to get from point A to point B?
I think as you covered it in the prereqs to the specialization itself, like you need to know a little bit of programming. When I say a little bit, you need to know like how to make a logic, how the programming languages work. So, and other than that, is some of the math behind some of the things you'll be doing. Like you need to know what a matrix is and how you perform different functions on the different matrices. So when took the deep learning specialization, I only knew how to do programming and I knew the maths. Everything else was taught within the course. So I didn't find at any point that I had any bridges to cross because it has very little prereq.
Okay. So as we covered when I was talking about the deep learning overview, you do require like some basic programming and some basic like linear algebra math understanding to kind of get into the specialization. So Avash, if you're someone who's not comfortable with that, don't worry about it. We recommend you kind of check out a few courses or do a few practice tests so uh, you can like work on your programming skills, and then if you take the deep learning specialization after that, that should be something that you can totally like imbibe like as you go along through the courses. But yeah, as Mopsy mentioned, make sure you're practicing your basics. Make sure you have everything that you need to take the deep learning specialization ready before you enroll in the course. And as the rest of the team mentioned, it's project, showcasing it's showcasing your skills correctly in the interview. It's building and surrounding yourself with a community of peers who will support you, who you can collaborate with. All great ideas and all great steps between like when you stop when you're done with your courses and before you get hired.
Well, one thing I would mention is like uh, maths should not be a hindrance to this because maths is basically the initial step. Afterwards, like you have different frameworks like Keras, TensorFlow, PyTorch. They basically do the heavy duty math for you.
Okay.
So you, it's not necessarily a hindrance, but like as and you would mention, like I heard him somewhere say, like it profoundly helps when you're doing the debugging because when you know the little math behind it, you know exactly what steps are being followed. So when you have to debug, because debugging a AI model is different than the normal conventional code. So it helps in debugging. Otherwise, you can still be able to do all of those things without having a lot of knowledge about what's happening under the hood.
Pardon me. Well, as an art student, I'm going to take your word for it, Mopsy. But thank you so
But
much
you do
for
need to know how to code.
yeah, that's a good point. You do need some programming skills. Great. Let's keep going. I know we have a few minutes left, so I would like to see if we can cover a couple more questions. Okay. Oh, that's a big one. Uh, as I'm going through these questions, it seems to me that these are broader questions that are not necessarily super relevant for this particular AMA session. So Mohammed, we'd love to get back to you with like specific answers and like more broader answers, and then I'd like to go back and answer more questions that are more specific to this AMA. Okay. How do you conceptualize the convergence of deep learning, knowledge graph, and digital twin? Can you please share insights on the interrelationships between deep learning, knowledge graph, and digital twin, and perhaps use a use case in manufacturing setting? What's a good starting point to bring these concepts together? This is again a very specific question about deep learning and manufacturing. I think if unless someone has a particular thought, I would like to move ahead, and then we can come back after this event to this question and answer. Okay, yeah, let's move ahead. And Anand Raj, we will get back to you with a better understanding of the question you've asked. But thank you so much for adding your question here. So this is a good one. Is it better to be a jack of all trades or a specialist? So as a beginner trying to chart a path in to learn AI over the next couple of years, currently in DLS, yay. Is it better to be a jack of all trades in order to cast the widest net for potential future employers? Or should I focus on specializing in a single subcategory of ML, like NLP, GANs, computer vision, and become an expert in that field? And if it is the latter, at what point in the learning journey should one pick a more specialization, I guess? This is a great question.
Great. I could go first. I hope I'm audible.
Sorry, Kennedy, can you hear us?
Yes. Great. So in response to that, for me, I would say my take and recommendation of would be on this, or what you'd call the generalist versus specialist debate, would be start out as a strong generalist first and then specialize later. That's what my mentor told me. And by that we mean move out, get to acquire the wide range of skill set in the different, you'll also be able to gain the diverse experiences working on different types of roles, different types of projects in the different domains. And through that, you will be able to acquire a wide range of skills, interdisciplinary thinking, and being able to work across different roles and departments. And also, even perhaps even at times you find yourself you'll work on areas that are outside data science and AI. And what does this mean? It means that you become a great asset to your team when it comes to solving real and practical problems that do not have straightforward answers. And then what have worked for me and what I picked up from my mentor has always been that once you've gained this experience working in the different areas, you've tackled different projects in the different domains. Like for my case, previously I've served in the worked as a data scientist working with the marketing team, sales and marketing, now in the supply chain. What all this means is that you're able to gain, once you've gained this enough experience working in these different areas, you get to a level where you're able to find your interest and passion, maybe in a specific area. Let's say, like for me, NLP. And I think at this point, this is where now you can opt now to deep dive and gain that more experience in the area that you want to specialize in. And at this stage, this is where now, like for me, since like I want to specialize more in NLP, you're able now to get that time to focus on your area of specialization, the strengths that you're bringing in, and you'll be able to work with your team with all the knowledge that you've gained all along. You remember, you've initially started out as a generalist data scientist, so you're coming in with broad knowledge and understanding of working on the different types of data science and machine learning workflows, and even at times working on activities that are beyond data science. So that means that you're no longer someone who just knows only one thing, like in my case, let's say on NLP, but you're coming in as someone who has who knows many things, but are you coming in to focus on one particular thing, and that's what makes you special. And at the end of the day, there's no right or wrong answer. The choice and the order in terms of how you follow, either to start as a generalist or a specialist, does not matter. As long as it fits your vision, either as a data scientist or a machine learning engineer, you can opt to start either as a generalist or as a or first opt to specialize and then later become a generalist.
Right. I think that pretty much covers it. Absolutely agree with everything you've said, Kennedy. I think we have time for one more question. So I think we've kind of answered this question. Let's check this one out. Are there ways at deeplearning.ai to collaborate with local universities to teach and implement practical deep learning at the undergrad level? We do have a few. So we do have our Pi and AI event series where you can anyone can be an ambassador and they can organize events at their own level. Would anyone would like to take the rest of this question? Or we can actually get back to you with we do have some ideas, so we'd like to get back to you with how we can collaborate with local universities. And I think we can do maybe one more question before I kind of open the floor for our speakers. Okay, let's do this one. How in depth do I have to learn MLAI to apply it to my developer career in a powerful way? As a software developer, I'd like to use AI to take my programs and apps to the next level, perhaps to build an app or a startup company. How deeply do I need to learn AI and ML to apply this? For example, do I need to take advanced math and algorithm courses and other data science courses in order to be successful?
I think some of it has been answered already. Like I mentioned, like you don't necessarily need to know all the maths. You can find different frameworks to do that, but
Yeah.
always knowing more will obviously help you. And understanding the I think it's helpful to take the data science courses and the machine learning courses. But then again, like if you want to take your apps to the next level, AI won't necessarily always be the right answer. It always depends on the application that you want to implement. There are some things which will benefit immensely with the help of AI. For example, you have a recommender system, and like some applications, some of the applications, but sometimes the simple solutions will also work. So it again depends on the use case that you have, and again depending on that use case, you can just gain the knowledge to implement as much knowledge as you would need for it.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Like figure out what the problem is, and then figure out what you need, what skills you need, and what stack you need to fix that problem, to solve that problem. Absolutely agree. Well, I think we're actually over time, but this has been great. Like, thank you to everyone, like all our viewers who were here, who asked great questions. Thank you again, Paul, Kennedy, Iranda, and Mopsi for joining us. This brings us to the end of today's event. We hope you've enjoyed and hopefully gotten something valuable out of today's session. We are going to send up a follow-up email with a survey. Let us know if you have any ideas on how to improve our future events. We're also giving out a 50% discount code for any of our online programs for up to 200 people who submit qualifying responses. So keep an eye out and make sure to send in your feedback. If you don't want to miss out our future events, sign up via the link in the description box below. And don't worry if you can't make a live event. You can always find the recordings on our YouTube channel. And with that, I actually want to open the floor and see if any of our speakers want to sign off, or have anything else they'd like to share, anything from their experiences. And just want to see what you guys have to say.
Great. For me, I'll say keep learning, keep building, and keep sharing your work out there.
And for me, I would say like we did get a lot of questions about like being able to transition into AI role. It's as simple as just sitting down and doing it. So don't be afraid, be curious, and work towards it.
No, that's great. Yeah, don't hesitate to take advantage of all the great material and the community that's out there, and like on the discourse forums to answer questions. And it's what Andrew said at the beginning, that basically success is a team sport, right? If you want to do great things in the world, it's hard to do it all by yourself. So you need to develop those relationships. So it's great to hear from everybody. Thanks.
Yeah, and I also share similar insights with the speakers today. And it's very inspiring to see the passion that you all put into starting this career path, and also hopefully the deep learning courses can be empowering in your career progress, but also in your vision of what you want to accomplish, and also bringing some innovative AI solutions to the world, and keeping in mind that this is sort of like an exciting time with exciting developments. It's amazing to hear everyone's progress in the journey. So please always reach out to us at Deep Learning AI, and we're here to empower you with the right tools so you can progress whatever you'd want to achieve in your life. So yeah, thank you all for the questions today.
It's great. Okay, well.
All right,
Bye,
thank you
everybody.
everyone for joining.
Great to see everybody. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Bye all.